It took me half a life to really get all the arenas covered, all the levels covered, putting the equations together. That's what my my masterpieces are about, is that those puzzles that have turned into now beautiful mosaics. It's worth the trip. When I watch most people who get stuck in never growing, never changing, complaining, drinking, addictions, yelling, screaming, whatever it is, because they're unhappy. That's why they're behaving that way. I come from a real place of love and no expectations. I don't have an expectation. It's just that what I do comes from love, and depending on what the response from the outside is, I'm told I'm very real, that I'm natural, that I'm a silly old lady, It's like I love to play, and somebody gave me a doll the other day, of a corn doll. Mm-hmm. And I carried it around town with me. I was so delighted with it, and it gave me an excuse to act silly, And somebody said, "Oh, what are those, voodoo doll?" And I said, "Excuse me." And I just stood up, and I didn't know this person that said it. And I looked at them, and I said, "Excuse me." I said, with great humor on my face, I said, "My name is Albertine." And they stopped, And I said, "Well, I had a poet in my life for many years, and she named me 28 different names over a period of 16 years. And one of them was Albertine. And it just suited this little corn doll, But it's that kind of thing. It's like, just being delighted over little things and playfulness. And I love to be silly. It's a good thing. And the littlest thing, I learn more from silence. For an example, like looking at a little bug or watching it take all the little grass with it from here to there, than I do for most people. I really do. It's because they're talking so much nonsense, and there's such joy in being a real person that's genuine. I don't behave in a way to make people like me.
Right.
And I feel really free. And the other thing about my nature is that I think I always was a free spirit. And if I had known that as a child and been allowed to express myself, I don't think I would have had to go through half the hell that I've gone through to claim myself back. But I am that little girl that's happy again. But look what I had to go through because nobody would listen to me. It was like, be quiet, look pretty, but don't say anything.
Right.
And this is why today's interview with me is like, I almost didn't do it. And I went, no, I must do it for my journey. I've never been 68 before. I am different now than I was the last time. This is part of growing. See how I feel about it. Part of me is afraid to do an interview or to put myself in public again, simply because I think people misunderstand a lot, or they misconstrue, or they put it in their way of thinking and it doesn't get across the right way. That was my fear, and I decided I'm going to do this to overcome, if that's a fear at this time. Do it and see how it goes. I'm not here to say perfect things. I'm here to share a part of myself. And I think we all need to do that. I think when you look at people on the street and look into their eyes or their body language or their posture or what they're about, you pick up a vibe that there's very unhappy people around. They are not happy. They might have lots of money. they're still not happy. It doesn't, well, it's such an old one, but, money helps your life, but it doesn't make it a better life in the sense of self.
You can be rich and miserable.
You can't buy it. I was once, so I know what that feels like.
Right.
Yeah, and it's horrible, absolutely horrible. You can have a home that looks like it's okay on the surface, and you're in fear all the time. So it's, the outer stuff doesn't bring you peace. It's the inner stuff, in my opinion, that brought me peace. The knowing my limits. No, I don't want this. And I don't have to be arrogant about the not wanting it. I just have to simply know how to graciously say thank you, but no thank you. And let those energies go.
One other thing that I was wondering about, and it's a slight change of topic, but as you were talking about the progression of your pernicious anemia, because, I've never experienced anything like that, and I would imagine that the reality, because it's obviously a very slow-working disease.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could... Okay, what I'm thinking is that how do I explain it? I'm wondering if you could talk about, and I think people could get a lot out of this, what the progression of the disease was like, how you felt about it, because it must be very strange knowing that something is wrong and something is going on, but you don't know what.
Exactly.
And I think that it could be very useful to other people.
The practical side of that.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I'm wondering, at some point, it must have been going from feeling a little wonky to realizing that something is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
The type of things that I guess I'm wondering about is when you first realized that something was very wrong and you needed attention, how it felt to go through all of these. Obviously, you must have had several wrong diagnoses. If this type of anemia is at the bottom of a 300
yes.
disease list.
Yeah.
There must have been, and I'm thinking there must have been a certain amount of where, doctors must have said, okay, we've got it now. Isn't that a lot of sort of building up hope and then something still, I guess, can you speak to that as a reality of going through it? Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
I remember what it was like when it first hit.
And you were how old when?
35. When I noticed something, and what I noticed was that I cried a lot. I thought I was having a breakdown because it was at the time of leaving a relationship. So I was in bed a lot, sleeping. I was very tired. I was crying. I didn't want to talk to people. And it was a sense of depression. Physically, I remember not being able to walk. And then, not knowing it, I would go into remission, whatever that was, but I wasn't told that officially or anything. And I would start walking again, because I used to run, that kind of thing. And I couldn't even barely walk up and down the stairs, so everything would collapse. So those were the first symptoms. I basically stayed depressed the whole journey.
Wow.
But would come out of it on occasion and think, oh, I'm okay now. And I was living a life that took in an awful lot of energy because I was working on myself, I was doing body work, bioenergetics, things like that. And so I thought, well, this is part of the change.
Right.
You see. And so then when I did go to a doctor in Canada, they said I was depressed. So out come the pills, And nothing really felt right there. I felt kind of stoned. So I went off of those, and then we'd go along and I'd be fine, and then all of a sudden it would happen again. And so this went on and on and on, and then it just kept getting faster as the years went by. And to the point where I was just like that all the time. I was crying. I was depressed. I couldn't eat. I ended up 80 pounds, so I became anorexic, not by wanting to be thin. And it took, when they finally found out what it was, and they sent me home from the hospital after a month, they had to even let me outdoors once a day at the end just to get me back into the world again. I mean, I was completely out of this world. And so it was like I had to start with 80 pounds of a bag of bones and a mind that had to be retrained. I lost all my cognitive things. All my muscle mass was gone. I couldn't even lift a pencil. I was anorexic. I could not keep any food down. So it took 8 years to learn how to eat again, digest everything. I'm in my 17th year. It was 93 that I ended up in the hospital. So all those years, and I went to my doctor one day, and I said, after I got out of the hospital, don't you think maybe some physical therapy or something might help? Duh. And she said, oh, that's not a bad idea. Here I am, I can hardly even walk, So I went to physical therapy, and he said, you're going to have a long haul, my dear. And he said, are you willing? And I said, yes, I am. And I had 4 years of weight training.
Wow.
And it was all done under physical therapy, getting my body back, all that stuff. Still couldn't find anything for the brain because they put me on quite a few different medications for depression, but because it had been so long that I had been deprived, my endorphins could not stay up with just good food and exercise, because for the first thing, I couldn't eat.
Right.
I had to learn how to eat, and I would throw up every day. I could not.
How did you learn how to eat again?
I trusted me. I think others and myself have come to the conclusion that I have an incredible intuitive self and intuition about others. And I see things that I think your average person doesn't see. I see it, I feel it, I hear it, I smell it. I think that's what consciousness is. And although I was very sensitive as a child, I became even more so as I found Diana, because I have skills which we all have. Well, what do they say? That hardly any of the brain is used?
Yeah, like 9 or 10% or something like that.
It's a tremendously high part that just sits there and starts to get numb looking, and you see it on the street. There's no life, there's no vitality. It's just like a slow death. Well, I decided that I wanted to be alive, and it was a slow becoming alive again. I think I'm the only, I am the only person I know that has come from the body just not working to this. I mean, I'm like a walking miracle, because couldn't eat, I had to hold on to things to walk.
Right.
80 pounds of bone, I had to build that. So for the first 4 years were about building muscle and trying to eat. So after 4 years, we had a body again. And I was around 100 pounds. And because I couldn't eat, I couldn't gain much.
Right.
Couldn't gain much weight, even with the weightlifting, etc. So it took 8 years to come out of